Hi guys, it's Jess from Honest Fiction and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you the spiciest fantasy romance books I've ever read. Alright guys, so if you're familiar with my channel, you saw that I posted a spicy dark romance recommendation video, and I'll leave that linked in the cards in the description. So this is going to be the fantasy romance version of that video. I'm just going to be talking about my favorite fantasy romance that have a lot of spice and steam. Now, if you're unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Thursday and Sunday. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit that notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram and Goodreads, both linked down below. With all that out of the way, let's talk about these spicy fantasy romance books. Alright guys, so I'm going to start off with the three most popular books. These are books that I have full reviews that are spoiler-free on my channel. If you want to go check them out, I'll have them linked down below. So first up, we have The Zodiac Academy by Peckham and Susanne Valenti. This is following two twin girls that on their 18th birthday, they find out that they're actually Fae royalty, and in order to claim their inheritance, they have to go to the Zodiac Academy. Unfortunately, when they get to the Zodiac Academy, they find out that these four celestial heirs are already ruling the school and don't want to deal with these Vega twins. Now, this is a bully romance. It is super steamy, super spicy. I think it's the fourth book that just completely blew my mind in terms of spice, but I love this series. I saw someone on TikTok compare it to watching like trashy TV. It is so addicting. There is so much drama. There is so much angst, but it is just so good. So if you have not read the Zodiac Academy, please give it a try. Susanne Valenti and Peckham also have a Dark Fae series that is also very spicy. I've only read the first book in that series. And then also King and Queens of Quarantine, I believe. I'm going to start that series next month. But overall, this is so good and super spicy. And next up is probably one of the most popular series on BookTube. It is A Court of Thorns and Roses, specifically A Court of Silver Flames. So this is the fourth book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. And I gotta be honest, I had very low expectations when I first started this book. So this is from the point of view of Nesta and Cassian. Nesta as a character, I really did not like in the original series, so I wasn't very excited to jump into a story all about her. However, this book was so good, and Sarah J. Maas definitely went up a level in terms of spice. This was way spicier than I was expecting. After reading her other works, I was just not prepared for the level that was in this book. So highly recommend, if you haven't read this yet because you're not a fan of Nesta, please pick it up. I think that Nesta is very much redeemed in this, and Sarah J. Maas did a very good job. And next up, we have From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is following Poppy, who is the maiden. It is a paranormal fantasy romance, and one day she sneaks out in disguise and she meets Hawk, who's the newest member of the Rise Guard, and he soon becomes her personal guard, and it goes from there. This has all the paranormal creatures that we love. We have vampires, we have werewolves. It is just so good, and this first book in particular, I just love the angst, I love the sexual tension, I love the slow burn. It is my absolute favorite. So if you have not read this series, please pick it up. I'm sure if you're watching this video and you're familiar with my channel, you know that I'm absolutely obsessed with it. So I just did a review of the newest book, The War of Two Queens, that I'll leave linked in the cards in the description. But in terms of spice, this is perfect, highly recommend. So moving into less popular books, this next book is probably the spiciest book on this list, and that is The Never King, and this is by Nikki Crowe. So this is a Peter Pan retelling, and the descendants of Wendy Darling on their 18th birthday are kidnapped by Peter Pan, and he takes them to his island with the Lost Boys, and they kind of share her, and it goes from there. This is a reverse harem, and it actually has some Fae components, which I wasn't expecting. So I really ended up enjoying this. For this being such a short novel, there is a lot thrown into this story. It was very interesting. So highly recommend if you're a fan of reverse harems, you like Peter Pan retellings, check this out. There is a sequel coming out to this book. I believe it comes out later this year in 2022. So yeah, I'm very excited and highly recommend. Next up is a book I wasn't a huge fan of. However, it is definitely spicy. It is very similar to A Court of Thorns and Roses, and that is Rhapsodic, which is the first book in the Bargainer series by Thalassa. So this is following our main character that when she was younger, she ended up making a deal with the Bargainer, and every time you make a deal with the Bargainer, who's like this Fae being, you get a black bead, which is essentially an IOU. So her teenage life, she ends up collecting a lot of these black beads, but she never has to pay back the Bargainer until 10 years later, I believe, the Bargainer shows up at her house and wants payment. So this, like I said, super spicy. I wasn't a huge fan of this because I feel like some of the spice actually ended up taking away from the plot. However, out of all of the books in the Bargainer series, this one was definitely my favorite. I really loved the main love interest, the Fae. I just thought he was awesome. And then the story was really interesting. You're also dealing with a mystery that you have to solve. There's kind of like a crime element going on, and it was a really fun time. So if you want a very, very spicy A Court of Thorns and Roses, I would check this out. And next up, we have a vampire fantasy romance. So King of Battle and Blood by Scarlett St. Clair. So this is following Isolde, who ends up making a deal to marry the king of the vampires in order to save her people, and her people actually really want her to assassinate him. Unfortunately, as soon as they meet, they have this sexual connection. So right off the bat, you have a lot of steamy scenes. Personally, I like more of a build-up. I like a slow burn, but if you're a fan of wanting that steam super quick, this is a great book for you. I think it was very fun. I just feel like some tropes were a little bit overdone, and I kind of guessed the big reveal at the end, but overall, still a very fun time and very, very spicy. All right, next up, we have a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and that is A Ruin of Roses, and this is by K.F. Breene. So if you follow me on Instagram, you knew I wasn't a huge fan of this. However, I cannot deny it is super spicy. So it is following our main character, whose entire village has been cursed, that they are all fae. However, they all seem to be dying before they really reach adulthood. And also, as fae, at one point they were able to have these animal beings that they were able to like shift into, but it was almost like two different personalities, and they've now been cut off from their animal personality. So our main character finds out that there are roses in this forbidden area that she can gather, and that will actually delay the illness from like killing everyone. Unfortunately, when she is gathering these roses, she ends up being kidnapped by the beast and taken to his kingdom that is just overrun with demons. So I did like a lot of elements of this. I thought the story was very interesting. I'm not sure how I felt about the writing. I feel like it was very, very vulgar and a little bit juvenile for the age that the people are supposed to be. So I think the characters in this are supposed to be in their like mid-20s. They kind of sound like they're 16 in some parts, but definitely spicy. This is probably one of the spicier Beauty and the Beast retellings I've ever read, and very blatant language, I think is the best way to put it. So if you really want those spicy scenes, this book definitely has them. Overall, like I said, I wasn't a huge fan because of the writing, but I think a lot of people will really enjoy this. All right, and the next book is a very loose King Midas retelling, and that is Gild by Raven Kennedy. So I am finally starting the third book in this series. I feel like it's taking me forever to finish this series, but we're following our main character in this book, Oren, who is solid gold, and she's very subservient to Midas. She's kind of like his treasured pet that he keeps in this cage and just kind of looks at her and like shows her off. So this book deals, first of all, check trigger warnings for all of the books I mentioned in this video, but definitely check trigger warnings for this one. There is SA, there's definitely some scenes that are hard to read, non-con, so definitely check trigger warnings. But overall, I'm really starting to love this series. I'm so excited that I got back into it. I don't know why it took me so long to read it, but overall, if you want a very interesting and unique fae story that has spice, I would check this out. I think it's worth all of the hype that it's getting. And last up, we have a series that I'm currently in the middle of rereading, and that is Fortuna by KJ Sutton. So this is following Fortuna, who is the last of her kind. She is a nightmare. So when she touches someone, she shows them their biggest fear. Now, her brother has been missing for 2 years, and she has been working tirelessly to try to find him. And one day, this fae shows up on her door and says, "I know where your brother is, but to help him, you have to marry me." And it goes from there. So this isn't super, super spicy. There are spicy scenes as the series goes. It gets more and more spicy. Definitely check trigger warnings. There is SA, non-con, and some things that some people probably won't be comfortable with reading. I love this series so much. It is so good. I love the way the fae are presented. We have the Seelie and Unseelie court. Once again, morally great characters, and the writing in this is just fun. I just think it's a very unique story, and I very much enjoyed it. I have read up to the third book. I still have to read the fourth, and I think the fifth comes out next year. So if you have not read this yet, please do. It is so, so good. All right, guys, those are all my spicy fantasy romance book recommendations. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know down in the comments below, what other spicy romance books have you read? What are your favorites? I said this already, but I post new videos every Thursday and Sunday. And if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week. Bye.